you're good to go.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. It is 1:01 p.m. and we are live on a digital platform. Present, we have Liz Mealy, Randy Allison, and Eric Biter from Williamsport City Council, as well as, I'm just checking to make sure that none of the other council members are here. Nope. As well as Mayor Derek Slaughter from the City Administration, Joe Pavlak, Kayla Drummond, Molly Steele-Shrimp, Chris Black from IT, Janice Frank from the City Clerk's Office, and it looks like I see Peg Woodring back there as well. Oh, and the Fire Chief, Sam Ungst. Okay, we have four items, on the agenda today, including any related items. And the first of those items is a transfer ordinance, ARPA transfer ordinance number 1 in first reading, and that item will be addressed by Mr. Pavlak. Joe?
Yes, last meeting, council approved the purchase of a traffic control safety trailer, and it's and related cones and things of that nature, barricades. I thought that had been discussed and put into the initial ARPA budget. However, when we got through that passage of that resolution, we realized that it hadn't. So we're proposing to move money from the public service contingency into a new line in the public safety category for the traffic control safety trailer in the amount of $19,000. Excellent.
And that item is best booked out under public safety, not under recreation for any reason, right?
According to my discussions with Scott Livermore, he had indicated that the ARPA consultants felt that was the proper category.
Okay, great. All right, Randy, Eric, do you have any questions on this?
I don't.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry. We obviously approve the purchase of the trailer. If we don't fund it, then that leaves Mr. Livermore in a very awkward position. So
exactly.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions or comments, Joe, are we all set on the fire apparatus elements that we approved?
Yeah.
The 2.6. Yeah, we covered that, right?
You had anticipated the additional 100,000, and then getting the contract to reflect that, we were able to get that money out for that. Yep.
Great. Excellent. All right. Okay, then if I hear no other questions, I take a motion.
I'll make a motion. We pass it to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Excellent. Then we'll move on to item number 2, a resolution assigning appraisal services for City Hall building and property to Nestaric. Is that Nestaric, Mr. Sander? Nestaric?
Nestaric.
Yep. Appraisal and consulting. Mr. Sander, take it away.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. We have before you is an opportunity to get an appraisal for the City Hall building. If we rewind back a few months, I put out an myself and a few other folks put out an RFP in the attempt to sell the City Hall building. We got 2 proposals back, one from Roan Real Estate and one from another real estate entity. We are leaning towards a public auction with Roan, and with that, Roan has a appraiser that he utilizes, and that's Nestaric. Their cost for an appraisal is $4,500, and we have several City Hall line items in the budget that would be applicable to pay this. If we do this, I guess this being liquidating City Hall, to set the cost, an appraisal is necessary based on the justification needed for council to accept the cost, basically per the city code, is the best way to describe it. And myself and our solicitors and some other folks conferred on that. So again, this is Nestaric appraisal and consulting for a cost of $4,500. to perform an appraisal on the City Hall building. It would take, I think, roughly 2 months to happen. And this was reviewed by 2 of our solicitors. And let me know if there's any questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sander. Randy, Eric, questions? All right. Hearing nothing. I guess I have a handful of questions, Mr. Sander. I presume, obviously, then that the low bidder, so to speak, in the RFP, or is this a professional service so that we're not required to take just the low bidder? Anyway, that we've chosen Roan per the RFP for this project.
The RFP was put out. It's for professional services. We don't necessarily have to go with the lowest bidder. It's not a construction project. So it's
Right.
We were leaning towards auctioneer because it's very fair, very transparent. An auction, that is, as opposed to a traditional real estate sale. So it lets everyone come to the table. We met with Mr. Rowan a week or so ago and explained this situation in a lot of detail as far as how he would promote the building, advertise it, get everybody interested there at the table, so to speak. And that's where we're kind of where we're at here. But with that, an appraisal is somewhat necessary based on the city code to justify the cost when it ultimately goes to council for that.
We haven't, to piggyback on that, we haven't definitely made a determination there. But it was, as Mr. Sander noted, Austin White and Jill, per the city code, said really step one here is to get the appraisal so that we have a baseline, whichever route we go.
So what you're saying is we have not yet established a relationship with Mr. Roan. We're simply using the appraiser that he recommended.
That's correct.
Okay. Got it.
Because any relationship with Mr. Roan, obviously we need to come, or whichever route we go, we need to come to council first.
Okay. Yeah, got it. And then what was I gonna, sorry, I had a follow-up question and it's totally slipped my mind. So we'll complete, what's the timeline for the appraisal once we authorize?
Sure, give me one. I think it was about 2
7
months.
weeks, I think it said.
How many weeks was it, Randy?
I think it was 7 weeks.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yep.
so about 2 months.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. And we have, I mean, I had understood actually that auction was often the only way that we could unload city real estate. Is that inaccurate?
We were advised there are.
Sorry. We have about 6 or 7 different options. We did reach out to Austin White related to that too. So public auction, no, that's not the only route. So there are some other options related to it. Some are more difficult and I'll say paperwork intensive, so to speak, than others. But as John noted, sort of leaning towards the public auction route due to its transparency and all of that, but that's not the only one, and we're not 100% committed to that yet.
Got it. And so I'm to understand from this that despite, my request and a couple other council members' requests to sort of evaluate the structures and make certain, legally speaking, where we stand, that the city has, that the administration has decided that we're selling City Hall?
Not 100% yet, but we're leaning that route. And Mr. Sander, Mr. Girardi, per council's request, have done, and we want to present that comprehensively once we make a determination.
Okay. Got it. So the concept is then that the appraisal is the first step to, or is one of several steps to understanding whether we want to leave City Hall or potentially remain there. Is that more what's going on here?
Yes. So if we move to present to council that we want to move in the sell route, we need an appraisal done. And so as part of the package, so to speak, we want to get an appraisal for City Hall, and honestly, it's probably, listening to both Jill Nagy and Austin White, it's in our best interest to get this appraisal done either way.
I would agree with that. My last question is, we would not in any way with an appraisal bind ourselves to a given sell price, correct?
That's correct.
That is to say, the city can sell the building to the highest bidder, regardless of what that bid might be.
That's correct. Listening
We
to
were.
Austin, and John, correct me but Austin White basically said this gives us, we have to establish basically a baseline, a fair market value per the city code, and this is what's required to do that. But
Okay,
no, it does not bind us. So, if it's and I'm just throwing a number out there, if it's appraised at 200,000, that does not say we have to sell for 200,000. It can go to the highest bidder or the highest offer we receive.
Yeah, got it. Okay, just wanted to make sure, because it's not, I know we've at various times talked about City Hall needing enough work that it might be unattractive to someone to pay fair market value. Perhaps not as well, but just wanted to make sure that we had the ability to sell it for whatever we could get for it,
Yes.
be that higher or lower than the appraised value.
And also, if we put in, I believe, is it 51%? If we go over that, then we're forced to upgrade. If we decide to stay in the building and do the renovations, over 51% of the value, then we have to do the whole entire. Is that correct? Am I saying that correct, John?
I don't know.
I believe that's what it is.
I believe that's what the disability consultant said.
Right.
Mhm.
So anyway,
So we're
we need
obligated
this
to
for a
do.
variety of reasons. Yeah.
Understood. Okay. All right. I think that's the extent of my questions at this point. If nobody else has anything else to add, then I will ask for a recommendation to council.
I'd like to ask a quick question
Yes,
regarding
please.
to the project as a whole. I understand the need for the appraisal, but is there work currently being done then on the presentation for council about whether or not, or what work has to be done?
I have my dollar figure. I updated it recently. I know Joe Girardi did the same thing. I'm not sure when that's going to transpire. I know what his dollar figure is. I'm not going to put words in his mouth. I know what mine is. It's 6.1 million based on the 6 million previously, plus another $100,000. I spoke to the random department heads in this building and other buildings to see what areas were the worst and put a square foot cost, and tallied them up. They came out to be about $100,000. So I'm personally at 6.1 million to fix the building in totality.
Thank you, John.
And
Yes.
again, this will be part of, whatever direction we decide to go in from the administration, we do the presentation to council. We would like to present the full package, give you all the paperwork and all of that. So, and do it in, all at the same time instead of piecemeal is how we're envisioning that.
And John, you mentioned how this is going to be paid for. Could you refresh my memory on that?
Sure. Yeah, let me talk slow. We have a city hall operating budget that has several applicable line items, and I can pull it up right now. Give me a second. Give me 1 second. It loads up here. Almost there. So obviously we're not in the building now, so.
Right.
And it's condemned, page 40. City Hall 2022. So we have, I don't know which of these is spent. That's obviously would be a question for probably finance folks. Supplies, materials, 12 grand. Heat and electricity is probably off. Facility maintenance, 20 grand. Contracted services, 35,000. Contingency, 35,000. This is all in this year's budget for the city hall operating budget. Yep.
So it sounds like there's plenty there. Okay, thank you.
Sir.
I mean, just to be clear, Mr. Pavlik, could we determine that those funds could be utilized to go toward our expenses at Trade and Transit 1 and 2?
I'm sorry.
The City Hall operating fund, now that we've relocated to Trade and Transit 1 and 2, those funds can be utilized there. Like I'm assuming the cleaning expenses, for instance, we're utilizing
That's
as
what
part
we,
of our cleaning contract.
correct. That's what we've been using.
Okay. But we do think there's enough flexibility in that budget for the 2022 budget year that $4,500 is not unreasonable.
Remember, we're just spending down the residual funds.
Right. The
Put in
remaining
there,
however
so,
much.
hey,
Yeah.
this is, I hadn't heard this yet, so I'd have to take a look, but I'm sure it could be used.
Mhm.
I'm sure there should be funds available. I just have to go back through and see where we're at.
Yeah. So Eric, we had for a number of years, the city was banking a small amount of money in the City Hall operating budget annually, as in we were budgeting slightly more than we were spending, and leaving ourselves some residual funds to the point that at one point we had close to $900,000, which was kind of a rainy day fund in case something went completely askew, you know. But the last couple of years we have opted not to utilize those funds that we'd been saving. So we are effectively spending down that balance. For better or for worse, of course, savings is a good thing, and we're not doing much of it anywhere. But so that the $4,500 will come out of that money, and it sounds like Mr. Pavlak saying that it exists, but that will result in less money in the overhaul budget for City Hall. Anyway, okay.
So
Mhm.
Liz, I have a question related to the studies that are going to come in from John and Joe Girardi.
Sure.
So I would direct it to John. The costs that you've estimated, and you wouldn't know probably for Joe, or maybe you do, are those costs adjusted for 2022 inflated rates and supply chain and all of that kind of thing?
Yeah. So what I did was I took the overall building estimate done in 2017 by Reynolds Construction and took it and inflated it based on the Department of Labor inflation rates from 2017 till now. That comes out to $6 million. And from there I took, that's still what I've been saying for the last year or so. In addition to that, I went to department heads and asked them about certain areas that may have gotten damaged due to the water events. And I tallied them up and multiplied them by a square foot cost for reconstruction in those very small areas. That's where the extra $100,000 comes from. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have.
Okay. Thanks, Randy. Anything further from you, Eric? All
Not-
right. Okay. Then hearing nothing, I think that's all the questions that I have currently. I would take a motion to forward this to the full body of council.
I'd like to pass this on to the full body of council as a recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I look forward to seeing more of the work product here. But Derek, just for the record, I know that I at least would prefer to be kept updated as we are doing research and producing information rather than receiving it all as one big packet at a point when the whole thing is more or less in your minds a tied up and done deal. I would rather have the opportunity to ask questions as we go along. I can't vouch for other members of the finance committee or other members of council, but this is something that I still consider very much in question, whether moving out of City Hall is our wisest option. And you would have a hard time at least getting my concurrence on it if if there's sort of this like, oh, we'll do all the research and then we'll plop it in your lap and be like, here you go, now we've made our decision. So I would ask that you keep me informed as we move forward.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly, Liz.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then moving on from this item, the next item on our agenda is, let me see here. Oh, sorry. Molly, we haven't talked to you in a while. Item number 3, a resolution appointing a director of information technology. This will be presented by our HR director, Molly Steelshrimp. Molly?
I apologize. I'm actually going to defer this to the mayor. I thought that was corrected.
that-
Okay.
Yeah, we had asked it to be switched over to mine, so.
Oh, okay. I noticed that you were doing it on the regular agenda, Derek. I actually just kind of assumed you were out of town or something. But anyway, then I saw you both on the meeting and thought, okay, well, we'll figure this one out.
Sure.
All right.
All right, so
Um,
yes. What you have before you is resolution appointing Director of Information Technology. We've had discussions over the last few months related to this as well. And Mr. Black, Chris Black, who is part of our IT department right now, with River Valley Transit, they're obviously becoming an authority. And we've had conversations with Mr. Black, and he expressed his desire to join us on the city side of things, which we were happy to hear that, given his background related to IT and the work that he has done in the city. He's done a lot of work within the departments. Up until now, he's familiar with the work that we're doing. He's familiar with the employees. And as the resolution says, he's done more than a satisfactory job of handling those responsibilities. And so, we're in need of a Director of Information Technology. And this resolution has come before you for your consideration, and it would be the salary for the position will be the current budgeted amount of $61,807 to increase to $70,000 after 1 full year of employment, which will be satisfied as of September 20th, 2022, given his current, obviously, is with RBT, and then if he, pending council's review here, that would be September 20th of 2022. And so this is before you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Randy, Eric, do you have any further questions? Or any questions at all? Sorry, on this one.
Yeah, I mean, Chris has proven his value and capability to handle the particular things related to the city side, especially we on council know how he's able to patch things together for us to get by so far till we upgrade some of our equipment and everything. But I don't have any questions, no.
Okay. Eric, anything that you'd like to ask?
This is kind of more of a kind of in the weeds questions, but as far as director, is that put him on the same plane? Like, obviously you have 5 directors within your administration legally because of third-class city code. Is this something that we can call him a director because of that legally?
Yeah, so this was part of when City Council updated the administrative code. I believe that was August 2020, I believe, correct? Is that Randy, Liz? I think somewhere in there.
That's correct.
So we updated, or City Council updated the administrative code, as you said, Councilman Biter, to include Director of Public Works, Director of Public Safety, Director of Human Resources, et cetera. So yes, this would also, another one that they included was the Director of Information Technology position. So yes, that would be part of the administrative code, and he would be considered a director. That's correct. And Director of Community and Economic Development as well, which is so yes, the answer to your question would be yes.
All right, I appreciate the background on that because I just could not remember the details of all of it.
We have the other area we've discussed a little bit was Director of Finance / Director of Administration. I think there's been some conversation to maybe update that a little bit. So, but yes, that would be across the board. He would join the rank of our directors.
And to follow up on that, then Eric, the hire of any director is required to come before City Council.
That I did know, which is why I was making sure that I was on the same page as what that was supposed to happen. So.
Right. Yeah. But does Mr. Black reside in the city?
He does not currently, but he is actively and I know Mr. Black is on, he can speak for himself, but we had this conversation, he's aware. So he's actively searching right now.
Excellent. Chris, it'll be a pleasure to have you in the city. But good. Okay. Because that's the other thing, Eric. I mean, we have a residency ordinance across the board, but obviously we want our directors to reside in the city, especially. So good. That was one of my questions. Eric, did you have anything else to follow up on the?
I did not. Thank you.
Question? Okay. The only other question I have, Mayor Slaughter, is so obviously we have a budgeted salary of 61,000 and change for this position this year. If we're increasing that salary to 70,000 in mid-September, it's not a ton of money, but that we're going to need to put an additional maybe $3,000 into that salary line item, transfer it from somewhere to cover the remainder of 2022. What's the administration's proposal for that funding?
So I'm gonna have to work with Joe Pavlak and see where we have some savings and bring that to council for your transfer, for your consideration.
Okay. All right, understood. And then the anticipation is that there's no further agreements regarding Mr. Black's salary. He'll remain at that $70,000 mark until such a time as the administration sees fit to give a cost of living increase or whatever, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. All right. I think that's everything that I have. Randy, Eric, anything else come up for you guys?
I don't. Thanks.
Okay.
I do.
All right. Then I would take a motion.
I'll make a motion. We pass this to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, excellent. That brings us to item number 4 on our agenda, which is any related items. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to introduce for discussion? Okay. I have one
Councilwoman.
item. Pardon me?
Go ahead, I was gonna say, I just have one.
Sure, go ahead,
sort of
Derek.
related.
Mine can come second. What's up?
Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's sort of related, sort of unrelated, but plans were submitted for the Old Children's Discovery Workshop, and they were approved by Gary Narr, Joe Girardi, and John Sander. And the building permit, I delivered that yesterday. And so the plan, I hand delivered it. He picked it up and I gave it to him. And so the plan is to have shovels in the ground over there within the next few weeks here. So I just thought that was some good news too.
That is good news.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fantastic news.
Yeah.
I have been getting to say that I've been getting hassled about that would be an understatement. Even by several members of my own family.
I concur.
It's
I mean,
exciting.
I've not been hassled by members of your family, but
Okay. So yeah, I'm delighted to hear that. Excellent. Thank you, Derek. And we'll be excited to see it get underway.
I am as well.
Yeah.
I had spoken to Chris Doherty a couple of weeks ago, and true to his word, it's been 2 weeks, and he said they were going to have it ready to go. So,
okay, that's great. Yeah, it's been a long pandemic, and I think that's made the lives, a lot of construction projects much more difficult. So it's important that we be understanding, but it will be good to see that project underway now.
absolutely.
Excellent. And the one thing that I wanted to bring up actually was, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I've been hoping, Derek, to sit down with you and Joe to look at examining, budget department by department through the finance committee to sort of begin the budgeting process before the November deadline. And because we haven't been able to sit down yet, I just wanted to, I've been thinking about this a lot over the last month or so while I was sort of hoping that we'd get together. And my proposal, and I figured I might as well run this by the other members of the finance committee as well, would be that we take the budget concept department by department, looking at one department each finance meeting, beginning at the first meeting in July, or perhaps the second meeting, because I wanted to give the department heads adequate time to sort of consider their needs, and adequate notice. But my thought was that we would perhaps begin with the public safety departments, which I know have more needs perhaps, or more desires than some of the other departments, and clearly have much larger budgets. Begin by speaking with the chiefs of police and fire at separate meetings, sort of talking about their hopes for 2023. And then we would, if we examined each department budget on a biweekly schedule, that should give us time to revisit police and fire more in the October timeframe, when they would have perhaps crystallized their budgets a little bit more. So the thought would be that we could have sort of initial conversations talking about whether they were interested in doing additional training and bringing in more officers or firefighters, and we would discuss the budgetary implications of that. And then as the year sort of wore on, and as they continued to look at their budget, we could come back to it then in October, help them to sort of crystallize things a little bit more. And ideally that would enable them, give them greater confidence in putting together the budget that will eventually come before City Council in November. And obviously we would do that then with other departments as well. It's a personal, issue of mine that I feel that we need another person in the finance department. And yet we haven't budgeted for it since the pandemic. So when we discuss the budget in the finance department, the idea would be to say, okay, so what do we do to find money so that we're more fully staffed in finance? Anyway, taking it piece by piece like that. So I think what I'm talking about is, yes, also perhaps periodically taking time to look at the holistic picture of where with Mr. Pavlak of where we fall in terms of numbers and how much we're increasing the city's budget with any potential expenditure that we're looking at, but also just looking really hard department by department and talking about what individual departments think that they need to function better, and what they think that they can do without to help make those new expenditures a reality. So I'm not sure. I was looking for feedback on that in some meeting or another, and I figured I might just as well bring it here. Randy, Eric, does that sound like a reasonable approach to you guys?
Yeah, I think it'd be a good way to kick things off.
Okay.
And it's getting the conversation started is probably the biggest thing.
Well, that was,
and then we can adjust as it goes along, but since we've never done it, we are in the wheel. But as far as this process is concerned, but I think it's a great way to dig in early. Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Yeah, none of this is obviously finalizing anything, but right. I think it's just sort of thinking of budgeting as something that one does almost on a daily basis in some ways, you know what I mean? Considering, right, instead of waiting until the bitter end of the year to sort of begin thinking about how we want to deal with 2023.
Right.
So I guess if that works for everyone, perhaps what I will do is kind of make up a schedule of when I think the different departments should look at coming to talk to us on City Council. Mayor Slaughter, if there are meetings that you won't be able to attend or that you'd need to leave early, I guess it would be helpful to know that, because clearly it would be helpful to have the administration, the head of the administration's opinion on all of this as well. It doesn't do much good for City Council to say, yeah, that sounds like a reasonable idea to us if administration is just going to heavy in and say we don't want to do that after all. But I can try to put together like a working schedule of when we'd like to speak to different departments, so that we could give them adequate notice to sort of get their thoughts in line about where they'd like to go in 2023. Joe, Derek, does that sound like something that we can work on? I mean, obviously better financial data when our audits are wrapped up will be great. But I still think that we can begin to just talk about 2023. I mean, some of our possibilities aren't going to change regardless of what the audit reveals. We will still need to run a city, and we will still need to run a police department and a fire department. So I think we need to look at it and talk about it now, and then we can adjust it as possible when we hear some more final financial details from 2019 and 2020. anyway, Joe and Derek, does that sound like something that we can get started?
Yes, and I had a good call yesterday with our auditors. They have some ideas as well for a sort of a starting point for us that they
Okay.
want to share, and they're ready to provide an update within the next few weeks here to the full body of council. Well, probably to the finance committee initially, and then to the full body of council. They're checking their schedules and dates to see which Tuesday, Thursday council week will work best for them. So as soon as I know that, I'll be back with you. But yes, this sounds good, and we'll get their input as well as the recommendation of sort of where to start. But yes, it sounds good. I will have the department heads ready, as they are.
Yeah, like I said, I thought the best way would probably be to start with police and fire. They're the biggest chunks, and it would be good to make certain that we can talk to police and fire twice in the process. Also, because I think, especially, it seems like the police department is just kind of looking for some guidance, and they have some goals they'd like to achieve. So, and then we can roll into the rest of the departments as the administration feels that they should be addressed, or in any order that you feel is the best approach. But okay, all right, then I will work on getting that out to you guys here hopefully later on today, and we can go from there. If there's nobody else who has anything to say on this item or any other related items, that's the outlook out there, folks. I would take a motion to adjourn then.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Sounds great. Nice short meeting for you, Janice. Should take no time at all to transcribe. And it was a pleasure seeing you all, and I will see you on Thursday. Okay.
Thanks, Liz.
All
Take
right.
care,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks, Liz.
You guys too. Bye-bye. Chris, welcome to the fold.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, or almost. We'll see what Thursday brings. Okay. All right. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.